Welcome to episode 448 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing writer, director, producer brothers Diego and Julio Hallivis. They just did a cool, contained horror film called American Carnage. They've done a good number of shorts and a bunch of features now, so we talked through all of that as well as this latest film and how it all came together. It's a great conversation, so stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread the word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 448. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. Just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Quick few words about what I've been working on over the last week or so. So I'm still very much plugging away, getting this film festival in order. As this episode publishes, I think September 5th, the festival is October 7th, so about a month away. I record podcast episodes a couple of weeks before, so I'm actually recording this, August 19th is actually when I'm recording it, even though it's publishing September 5th. So, if you want to stay up on the announcements, do join my email list. Again, that's just sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. I will keep the announcements going and they'll just be a little fresher. There's a limit to how fresh I can make the podcast content, at least in terms of just, day-to-day information. Hopefully by the time this episode publishes, I've got the schedule all figured out, but that's the main thing I'm actually doing today. After I get done recording this podcast, I've got to get the schedule really finalized. We're still trying to do something with Virtual Pitch Fest on that Saturday night. Actually, we're going to do sort of a co-sponsored screening and we're trying to get those films in order. There's a lot of moving parts to all of this. And as I said, I'm sort of at the early stages getting it all set up. But we're definitely going to do a screenplay reading. I've mentioned this before on October 9th at 2 p.m. at our theater, the Yard Theater in Hollywood. I'm going to bring in a bunch of great professional actors to read the screenplay. And then me and some of the other writers and judges, industry judges, will be in the audience listening. And then we will give notes to the writer afterwards. I'm basically going to run it like I used to run the writers group. We're going to get, as I said, a bunch of actors on stage. They'll each have a part and they will read it. And we'll be listening. It's a great, fun, interesting learning experience. I always found it interesting just hearing what other people thought about the same material, the same reading, and you get to hear this in real time. You'll have your thoughts, you'll hear somebody else, and you might disagree or agree, but it's just an interesting way of sort of critiquing a script, and you learn as much in the audience. I always felt like as you do, even when you're having your own material critiqued. So get your tickets if that sounds like something that's interesting to you. I will be sending out the link again to my email list. And maybe by next week, I'll have this set up so you'll be able to find that link in the podcast show notes. But for sure, as I said, I'll send it out to my email list. And as we get closer, as I said, all of the announcements for the festival, I will just keep sending them out. So keep an eye on your email. As I send these links out for buying tickets and other announcements. Anyway, again, the festival is going to be October 7th to October 9th in Hollywood. Hopefully you can come out. But that's the main thing I've been working on here over the last week or so. So now let's get into the main segment. Today, I'm interviewing writer, directing, producing brothers, Diego and Julio Hallivis. Here is the interview. Welcome, Diego and Julio, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you guys coming on the show with me today.
Thank you for having us.
So to start out, maybe you can give us a little bit of background about yourself. Where did you guys grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
So we were born in Mexico City, but then we moved to Florida when we were around 11 or 12 years old. And then we grew up in Florida. We went to film school there. And we actually started making short films in high school and then early on in college. We kind of always knew right away that we wanted to be filmmakers. Even before I knew the concept of what a producer was, I started reaching out to Julio for help. and getting things done for our short films. And then quickly that turned into a creative partnership, and that's when we started writing together and coming up with ideas together. And then we just kind of formed a production company.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah. So Julio, give us your sort of version of that. What were you doing as Diego was starting to do some of these shorts? How did you sort of fit into that? Did you want to be in the film business as well?
I mean, yeah, I was always interested, especially from seeing Diego so into it. I mean, he was always watching movies. We were always watching behind the scenes. And when he started doing short films, he started asking me for help, as a brother. I was like, yeah, I'll help you with whatever you need. And then little by little, we started collaborating more and more and more until we did our first feature. We did it in New York for very, very little money. And after that, we decided, hey, we got to move to LA and just make it happen out there.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of that. What were some of your guys' first steps? You did a bunch of short films. How did you get that first feature film off the ground?
Well, it was going to be a thesis for school. And, I was like, all right, we need as many resources. Like, how can we make this look as good as possible? But that's when Julio was like, why are we making a short film? Like, if we're going to go out there and really do this, let's make a movie so we can sell it. Otherwise we cannot sell it. So it was really Julio pushing, how far we could take this. And then it became, all right, we're making a movie, I guess.
I mean, we knew that a short film we couldn't sell. So I told him, look, nobody cares about short films. There's so many short films. We have the equipment, we have some time, spending for this thesis. Let's just make it a feature. So we raised a little bit of money from friends and family, and we went to New York. We had a little bit of resources there, and then we just shot it.
Mm-hmm. So perfect. So then what was that moment where you guys decided, okay, we got to get out to Los Angeles, and how did you guys make that transition?
Well, once we finished post-production for that film, we just sold all our things, and then we just bought a one-way ticket and we landed in LA. I mean, it was kind of stressful because I've never been there before, so just getting inside an airplane and landing and saying this is where I live, it's kind of shocking. But if you want to be a filmmaker, you kind of know that that's the step you have to do. So there was never a plan B.
Yeah, especially 11 years ago. I mean, it was not so much remote, working or anything like that. You had to come to LA and New York where there's a lot of things happening, and we had a finished film that we needed to figure out how to sell. So we just came to LA and started knocking on doors, and we went to the AFM film market. Someone told us that's a place to sell your film. So we got a badge and we started knocking on every single person's door to see who would sell it and who would buy our film. And then Grindstone got our movie and they released. And then from there, we just started working here, freelancing until we were able to get another project going.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So now that you guys have been here in LA for a while, do you have any advice for people who are maybe looking to make that same transition from another part of the country or world and moving to LA, and just some real specific stuff? Like, where in LA do you recommend people live in this, in the year 2022? If they just arrive here, exactly what you're saying, they get off the airport, where should they go to first to look for an apartment? Where should they go to look for a job? What are some resources that maybe you could offer to them?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just try to keep your expenses low, because LA can be a little bit expensive. So, even if you have to go to East LA or Burbank or the Valley or wherever you can get, cheap rent, and keep your expenses low. That way you can, concentrate on creating projects and creating stuff, because you're going to have to get a day job, And the best way is to try to get into a company, staffing company or something like that can get you jobs here and there and start meeting people. Go to every single event. The PGA has great events for people that are not in the PGA, the WGA, the DGA. You can go to events, you can kind of meet people. There's a lot of film festivals, and this industry is a lot about connections, So the more people you meet, the more people you're going to know. And it's just the way it is, And also a lot of people say we want to be filmmakers, screenwriters, but they really are not writing. We've written 10 scripts before we were able to make something happen, and rewrite and rewrite and rewrites, and it's just tough, But if you keep going, if you keep trying, there's a lot of people that make it out here.
Mm-hmm. I guess for me, the advice I would say is, making a movie, it's a team effort. It's not just a single person kind of thing. So you definitely want to find someone like a partner, so you can bounce ideas, so you can help each other out when you're feeling down, because this industry is it's kind of brutal in that sense that it takes a long time, a lot of rejection in the way, and it can get easily, you can get easily discouraged, right? But if you're with a group of friends that everyone wants to make movies, then you help each other out. Then you have like a little group, a little clique that you can rely on in order to survive and make things happen. Because then if somebody gets a gig doing something, they can bring you on board. Because like that, we experienced that, right? Like you get a PA gig here, then you get another gig somewhere else, but you meet someone who pulls you along for another job, and then you meet someone who then introduces you to someone else. So definitely, it's a team effort.
Yeah. Sound advice for sure. So let's dig into your latest feature film, American Carnage. Maybe to start out, you guys can just give us a quick pitch or logline. What is this film all about?
It's a movie where after an executive order, some young kids are sent into a government program, and then quickly they find out that there's a sinister secret waiting for them.
Mm-hmm. What was the genesis of this? Where did this idea come from?
The genesis came from us being immigrants ourselves, and then seeing the political climate, seeing the videos of the separation of families, seeing how both political parties use the Latin community to manipulate the masses. And so what we just wanted to do was something that was a social commentary on that, but doing it in a way that it felt fun. Because, there's a lot of documentaries and stuff about this subject matter, but it gets very dark very quickly, and it's not something it's easy to consume. So we wanted to make something that you had a fun time watching it, but it also made you think at the very end. But at the same time, it's a fun experience.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, you mentioned your first feature film. You guys are sort of just getting out there. You're going to AFM, talking to distributors. How much of this was a business decision just in terms of this? I mean, it's a fairly contained movie. Once you guys get to the main location, it takes place a lot there. So there's a lot sort of going in terms of just a low budget genre film. But how much did that sort of play into your going for this and trying to get this movie made, as opposed to something that maybe needed a bigger budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you are always conscious with the budget. As an indie filmmaker, you never have enough money. You always have to cut corners somehow. There's surprises every day. I mean, you write a movie with something in mind, and then when you shoot it, it's something a little bit different because, again, you have a lot of limitations, and that you always keep that in mind. But I think that we knew that we wanted to do something that looked bigger than what it was. I mean, I think that right now there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of movies out there, and you have to be conscious of what you're writing in order to make something that is gonna be a little bit different or a little bit better than the other stuff. So we have to kind of always keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. When you're developing and when you're writing a story like this, you figure out what is it that you want to tell, but then you're always going back and rewriting and re-engineering based on what's available and what you have in order to make it happen. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter you have like the best script. If it takes $100 million to make it, it's just not going to happen. So it's that struggle between, in your mind, what's the movie that you want versus like the reality, and how to, where do they meet and how do you make that happen?
I mean, we had to rewrite a couple of scenes on, already in pre-production, just because we knew, okay, we have to adapt this. We cannot go to another location. We cannot find this. We have to consolidate a couple of locations, and you have to be lenient when it comes to that and make it work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So let's dig into your writing process a little bit. Talk about your collaboration. How do you guys work together in terms of producing a script? Do you do like index cards in the same room? Do you get on Skype or something? Just talk through your sort of collaborative process, how it works. Do you divide up scenes? One person does a pass on a scene and the other person takes it. Just maybe walk through sort of your collaboration, how you guys work.
So in terms of like the ideas and the beats and everything, we use whiteboards. We have a bunch of whiteboards, and we write everything, and then that way we can rearrange things. And then when it comes to the development of it all, like all that stuff, the writing, the dialogue, and all that, it's the two of us in the same room, just with a computer in front of us, and we just like make it happen.
Bounce ideas back and forth. We always start pretty much with an outline. I mean, I think that's the first step. Once we have an outline, we start developing a little bit more of each scene, and then and that's what we continue doing. But it takes a long time. We sometimes argue a lot, because we have very different opinions, but at the end of the day, we figure something out that works, that we are both happy. But it's a long process, and it's a lot of rewriting. I mean, we rewrite a lot,
but we definitely make sure that we know where we want to go with it. We already know the ending.
How do you guys, and especially being brothers, it's a little bit of a different situation than just a typical writing partner. But when you guys have these differences of opinion, and you guys are arguing, are there any just moments where there's just you just don't see eye to eye? And ultimately, how do you get past those moments? How do you come to some sort of, consensus?
I mean, we yell a lot to each other. Then one goes to, I go to my house, I leave him alone for a couple of days, and he texts me an idea, and then I text him another one, and then figure something out.
Sometimes we do have we would pitch to someone that we trust, like a writer friend of ours, and see what a third opinion is, and then sometimes they think something completely different, and then we're like, oh, actually that's even better than both of our ideas. Or sometimes that person would side with me or with him, and we kind of like it's like a democratic process. But even there's sometimes where we like flip a coin, and then we just kind of experiment with that, and then we end up rewriting that scene anyway because we just ended up going in a different direction. We have a pair of boxing gloves. We do this a lot.
We're not kidding.
No. We just like in the living room, we push all the furniture to the side, and sometimes we just kind of like fight it out. And then once you blow off some steam, then you're like in a better mindset to just talk creatively, because like you let it all out, and then you talk, and then it becomes a creative conversation again.
Like we never get stuck somewhere just because we have differences. We get stuck maybe in a creative way because we don't know where to go, and it takes us a little bit longer to get there. But when it comes to if we don't agree in something, I mean, we'll always make it work, in a couple of days.
Yeah. So you mentioned you guys don't start really writing until you have a pretty detailed outline. How much time do you spend on the outline versus how much time are you actually in final draft? I'm just curious, just like, what is the ratio? Do you spend, a month on the outline, then a month in final draft, 2 months on each? What does that sort of look like for you guys?
I think it
depends on the
project.
Depends on the project.
Yeah, every project's been different, for sure. But we always spend more time writing than the outline, because like the outline is just kind of like the you crack the story. And then I think the writing part is the one that takes the longest, just because far. Dialogue and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes we change a character once we have a completed draft, but then that character making that change has like a domino effect. So then you have to go back, and then it just becomes a bigger deal. But you gotta do what you gotta do.
Mean, we do have an outline, but we're big believers that you just gotta start writing. Because even though we have an outline and we're following to the T at first, I mean, that might change a lot by the end. Because the main thing is it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be, oh, this is a perfect outline. This is a perfect ending. This is a perfect ending. You just got to start writing and put something on the page, because little by little, once you have those 91st pages, I mean, you change a lot, and sometimes you rewrite from the beginning everything, but it's just starting the process what I think gets us going.
Yes, 100%. I think getting the first draft is always the hardest part, just because you're gonna have to go back and change a lot of things, but just getting it done the first pass, then it becomes real, and then you can start talking about a real project, about what scenes to change and all that.
And I can tell you that every first draft is always trash, so it's the way it is. You just write that first one and then just work from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we've ever done a project that's less than 8 drafts into the screenplay. So that the first 2, 3, you just have to like power through them, just because you need to get it done and give yourself the sandbox of where you're playing with.
Yeah. Sound advice. I totally agree with you on all of that. So were there any interesting lessons that you guys learned writing this screenplay? Anything that surprised you, or just some takeaways from writing this?
Well, at first, I guess we were very protective of our previous scripts, and even this one, in the sense of like, this needs to be done this way, this needs to be set this way. But we realized that we actually work better when we're on set and we're kind of like improvising things, just because you already did the work when you were writing it, that you already know exactly what the motivation of the scene is. You know exactly what the motivation of the character is. So that gives you the freedom to then have more room in when you're filming it, just to, how you can execute it, how you can do this. But I didn't feel comfortable doing this until I did the work before in the development, in the writing of it. because you need to make sure you know exactly what every scene should be about.
And I think a lot of it, a lesson on this one is we had a script that we really liked and that we wanted, but once we had an amazing cast that made things a lot easier. I mean, working with them and hearing sometimes their point of views and sometimes their improvisation, how they felt in certain scenes. I mean, that was something that sometimes we were, not open to it. But in this film, I think with a great cast, it was very easy for us to hear different ideas. And we're like, oh yeah, this works. And once you hear these great ideas from the cast, when they tell you a couple of improvisation lines here and there, I mean, that worked very well.
Yeah, for sure. Like in your mind, when you're writing it, you have this idea of like what it should be. But then when you come to the reality of casting and you bring actors in, a lot of the times we realize like, okay, this character should be a little bit more this way just because we got this actor and this actor is great at doing that. So let's just work with the strengths of this actor and let's have this character and this actor kind of like do like a hybrid of the original character that we had and what this actor can bring to the table. And I feel like that way you can elevate the material because then you're using someone else's skills to enhance your writing, to enhance your comedy, or to enhance, the tension of a scene.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about your development process a little bit. You mentioned all these drafts that you guys typically do. What does that look like from draft to draft? Do you have an agent, a manager? Do you have actor friends, other writer friends that you send out to and you get notes back? Or is it just between the two of you guys doing, just improving it and bouncing ideas off of it? But just describe, what does your development process look like?
I mean, at the beginning, it's just us. At the beginning, the first couple of drafts is definitely just us. But then after that, we give it to some people that we know, that we trust, to read it, that we know their opinion, because obviously you can only ask people to read so many drafts. I mean, it can get annoying for people. So we make sure that the project is somewhere. Then obviously, we have our managers that help us out. Then we have friends that work at agencies, depending on the script and depending on who it is, producers, friends, and we always try to get a little bit of advice or like a take on it. But I think at the end of the day, we know what we want and we think, I mean, we feel it, and it's only an advice, and people can only give you, suggestions and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, it's art, and you have to go for what you think it works.
Also, in terms of like changing the screenplay, I guess there's two phases, right? There's the phase of when you're just writing it to see if it can get made. You're in this world of you're kind of like in a vacuum, right? The reality hasn't kicked in terms of like budgets, time, schedules, and all that stuff. So once you are done with that phase, and then you're writing for the production part of it, then you need to start adapting certain scenes and maybe rewriting them to take place in another place, just because you need that location that day, and then okay, this scene can work here. So it's always it's always evolving, it's always moving, and you always you need to be open, about it. Just because as an independent filmmaker, you wish you had all the money and time in the world to like just shoot it the way you want it, but that's just not the reality. So you need to learn how to play ball and how to roll with the punches.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, how do you guys approach screenplay structure and just sort of genre requirements? And I just, in the context of like a Sid Field or a Blake Snyder, they have a very distinct sort of template for screenwriters to follow, but just with plot points and stuff. But where do you guys fall on that, just in terms of screenplay structure and sort of using a paradigm that, a tried and true paradigm like that?
Yeah, well, I guess that's a great question in the sense, because that's where you'll see a difference between the two of us. Julio is very respectful of the classical structure, and I like to go a little bit crazy with bending the genre and going crazy with it. And in that sense, I need his help to ground me in a way, because otherwise I'll just go too crazy with it. So he's always very good at keeping the plot. Whereas like sometimes I like to be so crazy with it that I lose sight of the purpose of the story. So we're very good in that sense that we kind of balance each other's strengths. Because then sometimes I'll come up with like a creative way to do something that's unconventional, but then he'll be like, that's not like conventional, but that works and I really like it. So we really bounce ideas that way.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about once you guys had a draft of this script that you guys really liked, what were those next steps to actually getting it produced? Did you guys know you wanted to direct it and produce it yourself? Did you send it out and try and find a bigger production company to finance it? But just talk through those steps. Once you had your script done that you were happy with, how did you guys ultimately get it to the finish line?
I mean, we definitely wanted Diego to direct the script. We were writing for Diego to direct this. And I mean, we tried, we knocked on multiple doors. We talked to everyone in town, and sometimes it's just nothing happens until someone reads the script. And I mean, we talked to one of our friends, Andres, who he's a producer. He was born in Spain. And he said, hey guys, I think I have a couple of people in Spain that can help us make this happen. We also were lucky enough that someone inside CAA read the script and loved it. And he helped us a lot and helped us get the casting going and get everything going. And then little by little, you start putting the pieces together. And that's why the movie was actually shot in Spain, because of the access that we had over there to certain crew and financing and certain stuff. So that's the way this one works, but it's just, there's so many ways to skin the cat, like they say, but it's a matter of hearing 1,000 no's to get one yes, so it's just getting used to rejection and going knocking on doors.
Yeah. And I think unlike the other projects we've done in the past, this one, because of the subject matter, because of the story, because of the twist and all that, we got a different reaction. And so once we gave it to the right person at the right time, that changed everything, because then you start getting like a little bit of hype behind it. And then that is what helped the project move to the next phase.
Gotcha. And I'm curious, you just mentioned a producer who found some funding in Spain. You mentioned a friend that was at CAA. How did you make those connections, just specifically, just so people have some sort of context if they want to start to get there and network? Do you remember how you met these folks?
Yeah, I mean, you meet them through, like I said, the PGA events. The producer, Andres, he was introduced to us from another friend that we met at another event. And then little by little, you just start meeting people, and then you have to be careful when to ask for favors, pretty much, on what scripts to send, because you have this friend, and if you send 10 scripts to him, if you send a script a month, he's gonna get tired. So you have to know who to send the right project. But mostly I think all these people we've met through either having meetings. Our manager sent us to general meetings, talking to people all over town. Like I said, from film festivals everywhere,
Also, I think one thing that I guess some people don't realize how it works is that some of the connections that we had for this project, there were connections that we had from years back, because like we did a short film and we kind of went viral and all that stuff, and then we tried to make other projects happen, and those didn't happen. And then it was just because this one sort of clicked. The relations that we fostered over the years kind of like paid off. It wasn't like we just met someone on Monday and then on Tuesday, we knew them just because we've been in LA for like 11 years now.
I mean, you need a lot of patience. You need to have as many relationships as possible, because you never know who's going to help you with what, or how the dots are going to connect somehow.
Mm-hmm. And I think you guys bring up a really good point. And I don't know the people that are outside the industry fully appreciate this. You mentioned that you had a bunch of other projects that you guys were working on that didn't actually get made. And there's so much of that. So many of us as filmmakers, we work on these projects that never actually do cross the finish line. And can you give us some sort of context with that? Like, how many projects like American Carnage did you get real close to starting production, but then for whatever reason, the money falls through, or just something doesn't quite happen to actually get a win? What is sort of the percentage? How many projects do you guys work on to get one actually completed?
Oh man, I mean, a lot.
Yeah, it's just, I guess it's a tricky question, because there's the version of like how many projects we've been pushing, and then how many projects were actually in the process of like maybe happening. I mean, I can think of at least 2 projects that fell through, the Alaska and Puerto Rico. I mean,
we have projects that we were ready to go, we're pretty much casting, and then the money falls through, and then, I mean, also in this town, it's really tough, and there's so many moving pieces that, but yeah, I can tell you that it's 5% of the projects that get made, it's really, really tough. And I think one thing that we always said is like, let's just make sure that we don't have a baby in a way, like we don't want to treat a project like we're not going to change this, we're not going to do this, we're not going to, for us, it's pretty much like we just want to be filmmakers and we just want to do stuff. We just want to create art, you know? So, I mean, we're open to suggestions. We're open to changing stuff. We're open to doing whatever we need to do, as long as it keeps the story and doesn't compromise the story, of course. But I mean, you have to be open. And I think that it's important that you let go sometimes of certain projects if someone's willing to help you for a credit or for money or for something. You know, there's so many people that I've heard that I know that they want to have so much control over a project that it's tough for them to have other people help them, that nothing gets made, you know. So just gotta be open, and because it's really, really, really tough to make a project. You know, that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, and it's really hard for you to get this art out there, you know. And then obviously everyone's gonna criticize it because that's the world we live in, but it's really, really, really tough to make a project, and you put so much sweat, tears, and blood into projects, and you work 16 hours, you know, so you really have to love it, but it's really tough to get it made.
Yeah, and I guess you gotta just always keep in mind that a lot of the times has nothing to do with like the script itself. That if the project doesn't get made, there's a lot of moving pieces. It's a lot of variables. The two projects we were talking about, the reason why that didn't happen is because of the tax incentives rules change, and then all of a sudden all this money that you were gonna get now you're not getting, and that was the reason why the project didn't happen. So it has nothing to do with like the actual story or, you know, what you wanted to do with it. It's just more of like the ecosystem in which how movies got made. Sometimes one variable, you know, just makes everything collapse, but it had nothing to do with the creative part of it.
And I think people have to remember that it's like sometimes you send a script and they say, oh, this is not good, this doesn't work, or this this doesn't work for us. That doesn't mean anything, you know. That's just one person's opinion. So I mean, that's why you have to know what you like and just keep pushing and perseverance.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. How can people see American Carnage? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Yeah, I mean, the movie comes out tomorrow, Friday. July 15th is going to be on all the demand platforms. You know, you can rent it in Apple, you can rent it in Roku, Amazon, everything. And then from there, we're hoping, let's see where we land up in a streamer. But for sure, we're going to go into a streamer. We're talking to a couple of them right now, but right now, Lionsgate and Savannah releasing, and then let's see where we go from there.
Perfect. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I will round up for the show notes.
Yeah, I mean, we are not active when it comes to social media, but I think like either Twitter or Instagram, you know, that's normally where we will post any announcements or anything going on for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll round those links so people can click over to. Well, congratulations getting this film done. Good luck with it, and good luck with all your future films. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me.
Ashley, thank you so much for the time, and good luck with everything.
Hey, thank you. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
SYS's From Concept to Completion screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing screenwriter Richard Pierce. You may remember that he was the winner of the SYS six-figure screenplay contest 2 years ago with his winning screenplay Killer Profile, and his movie got produced through the contest. We were able to introduce him to an industry judge that took the film to one of his contacts at Mar Vista, and they actually produced the film really very, very quickly. And he stayed very busy from this first initial project that he got set up at Mar Vista. They ended up hiring him for some other projects. Ted Campbell, who is the director and producer, who was our industry judge and was introduced to Richard, ended up working with Richard on a bunch of other projects. They actually have something that they're real close to getting greenlit. So we talk about that a little bit. But anyways, next week's episode is Richard coming back on and sort of talking about his career as a screenwriter since he made that initial sale. And it's really interesting. As I said, he's got a lot of rewrite work. And it all stems really from his deep understanding of how these Lifetime movies work. And not just a deep understanding, but a real appreciation for these Lifetime movies. And now, as I said, he's getting these gigs, rewriting them. He did another one where he pitched a bunch of log lines, and they ended up hiring him to write one of the log lines. So he talks about all this next week and just how he was been able to get these deals, how he's been able to move from one project to another network, and just grow his screenwriting resume. It's really a fascinating interview. And he's very, very candid about all of it. So glad to have Richard back on next week. So keep an eye out for that episode. It's really interesting. Anyways, that's our show. Thank you for listening.